Good evening, everyone. I'm sitting here tonight with Ms. Lorna Edmonds, who is the federal Liberal candidate here in Leeds-Grenville-Thousand Islands-Rideau Lakes. Thank you for agreeing to join us tonight, Ms. Edmonds.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you for agreeing to run, because politics, frankly, democracy only works if everybody plays. And it's about the competition of ideas. Let's dive in to the platform. You are the Liberal candidate. You are in the party currently being led by Prime Minister Carney. And there are a number of issues in the Liberal platform, but I'd like to dive in on how those might impact or how you see them being implemented in our riding. So the question of housing affordability, and as a subset of cost of living, how does the Liberal platform speak to housing affordability, and how would you see that being implemented in our riding?
So I think if you're listening to Mark Carney as our Prime Minister today and as our Prime Minister tomorrow, I think what you're seeing very clearly is that building Canada back, building Canada strong, and investing in our future, a big part of that is our housing. And what we're going to see is a huge investment in housing at many levels. It's at the level of ensuring that not building just 200,000 a year, we're going to aim to double that. And to do that isn't insignificant, because we need the workers to support that. So there will be a huge investment in the training and the supply of workers to those communities across Canada, but also in our own riding. And we know that past practice in our riding is that we haven't had a significant housing development, particularly in the area of affordability. And what you see in Prime Minister Carney's plan is that affordability is a big part of that issue. And so if you're a first-time home buyer or you're a new builder, affordable housing is a big ticket item for our Liberal Party, and I think that's what you will see in a significant way. So for homes $1 million or less, there'll be no GST. You will see for construction companies that are investing in affordable housing, there will be tax breaks and incentives for, the development charges are left over. The municipalities will be supported. So I think you're seeing quite a sea change from the federal system in terms of partnering with the provinces and the municipalities to ensure that we get rid of the bureaucracy, we get rid of those challenges that we face in zoning and red tape, we speed up the process, we ensure that we have qualified, accessible people to work with us in our communities. So I'm hoping that will actually add training to our community, maybe in our current college system that we have, that we can build that up, because when you build up our college system, you bring new students, you bring new economies, you bring people who want to work in our small businesses. So I would hope that our riding will benefit in a significant way, because what I learned from the provincial time is that our communities aren't growing as fast as other communities across Canada. And a big piece of that is they have to have a place to live, whether it's permanent housing that they buy or rent. And this will be a major investment that we will tap into. And again, a vote for Lorna is a vote for Mark Carney, and we want to make sure that we have a seat at the table so that we're going to be part of Mark Carney's housing plan and every other plan that he moves forward.
One of the more interesting aspects of what you just said about affordability is how to afford that affordability. And we're already in a period of very high federal debt, and we're going into a potential period of economic downturn, depending on what happens with our international relations. So with tax cut promises, how does the Liberal platform envision funding these promises? Yeah,
it's a really good question. I think it's a question for all of the parties.
But you're here today.
I know, but I mean, I think what you're seeing is that in terms of, Mark Carney's an economist, so he knows that in order to reduce our debt or to build our social safety net, we need to invest in our future. So building back Canada and investing is a big part of his agenda. He's not going to sit back and just wait for us to reduce our taxes or to increase our taxes, on the other hand, because we're not doing anything. So investing in productivity, investing in business, investing in opportunities for us to build Canada into a global powerhouse will be number one. But parallel to that, and just talking about the tariffs, is that we have to make sure that as people might lose their jobs or as businesses might lose the opportunities to work with the United States, we also have to have a plan to support them. And as you can see from his plan, there is a very solid and measured plan to ensure that workers and businesses can be supported for the next 6 months at least, that the businesses will be provided opportunities to diversify, and that we're going to reduce our barriers for our own interprovincial, our territories, so that we can have a One Canada business plan, which is it's a big difference. So I think you're going to see a major shift in Canada's approach. And if you listen to Mark Carney, what's really powerful is that he talks about an economic plan, but parallel to that is, as I mentioned, is supporting workers under strife and our communities and our livelihoods, but also maintaining our social safety net, because he knows that in Canada, our values is we build a globally competitive nation on the basis of talent and healthy people who can work in all capacities and safe and secure communities. And that's not always the agenda of other countries, but in our country, that's a value that the Liberals hold dear. And what you'll see with Mark Carney is a measured plan. Build Canada back, invest in our people, and together we will grow, and we will be a sovereign nation, and we will be a globally competitive nation.
Speaking of equitable access and speaking of national plans, the Future of Canada Post is currently under review. And it hasn't been talked about much during this campaign, but it's an essential service for rural Ontario and rural Leeds and Grenville. Without Canada Post, so much of enabling access goes away. So what is the Liberal Party's attitude towards the Future of Canada Post in Leeds and Grenville?
So that's a really good question, of which I don't think I can answer what is the national Liberal platform. But I know as somebody from rural Ontario that any service that we need to make sure that we're at the table when the negotiations happen, so that we can negotiate on our collective behalf, because we know what it's like to lose schools.
So what's your position on Canada Post?
Well, again, I wasn't expecting the question, but I think what I know is that we value Canada Post, and we're looking for a solution where they can find a way that they can serve us in a way that they can be sustainable. And I would be very happy to see Canada Post continue, as long as we can make it both a productively, economically viable program for those who work in it and for those who benefit from it. Of course, I don't want to lose any services. That's the dilemma we face in rural Ontario, and that's the dilemma we face in our north. I mean, we always seem to lose out, and as you know from my previous campaigning, I am very committed and I'm quite tenacious at making sure our rural issues are at the table. But then you need to vote for Lorna Jean. You need to vote Liberal this time, because we know that Mark Carney is going to be our Prime Minister, and I really want our riding, particularly ours being a border riding and a rural riding, to be at that decision making, and I will be our voice. It's not my voice, it's our voice.
What part of the Liberal platform speaks to the needs of Leeds and Grenville that you don't think has gotten any attention? Frame it for the riding. You know what I'm saying? So there's got to be some part of the Liberal platform that speaks. So is there something you want people to know about? There's a couple of national
platforms that aren't quite yet on the table. I mean, the housing is on the table, the tax benefits are on the table. I'm not sure that any of our groups, including, and maybe it will come, is our health care. As we know that 25% of our community don't have a family physician. We know that our emerges are surging with people, and not enough physicians and nurses and social workers and PSWs to serve them. We know that our long-term care facilities are also stretched, and they're having a hard time finding qualified PSWs. So I think health and serving our seniors are two areas that are really dear to our riding, and I look forward to working with Steve Clark to solve that, because it is a partnership between the province and the federal government to ensure that we bring back a public health care system that means that as we grow older, we don't have to pay for it. I don't want an American model, and anybody who does, having lived in the United States, I know firsthand this is not a model that we want in our riding. Far from it.
Well, we do still have to pay for what we get, as it were. And one of the challenges, fiscal challenges facing the entire country right now, is actually funding for CPP and OAS in the long term.
Yeah, it's huge. Actually, it's doubled in the last decade. Yes.
And there's a significant deficit in the current funding model. And as a percentage of income earned, young people are currently paying more as a percentage of their income than their elders did.
Yeah.
So the question, does part of the Liberal platform speak to ensuring that CPP and OAS remain viable into the future?
Well, I mean, again, going back to, or harping back to the economic plan, I think that's central to our economic plan of building a globally competitive powerhouse economy, which is right on it's number one on our agenda. And that is the only way we're going to move forward. And part and parcel of that is, you're right, we have an aging population, but thankfully we're in Canada. We will treat that aging population as if they are in their 20s, meaning they will get equal support. And that, I think, is really important. And so part of that will be not only our productivity strategy and our economic strategy, but it'll also be our immigration strategy. You know, we're going to have to relook at immigration. Once we establish the baseline data and the support systems for our current immigration community, because a big part of our immigration challenge is not so many immigrants, it's the lack of housing, education, and healthcare to support them.
But that's about setting conditions to provide those services before the people arrive, as opposed to doing it
Well,
after
I think
the
that
fact.
what happened is, I think there was a plan, and we didn't succeed in meeting that plan for our immigration community. But we have to have a population base in order to serve, as you know, our municipal base in our own riding and our nation. And we want to be able to support our elders as they grow. I want to be supported. You know, we all do. We want health care. We want to make sure that people who are on disability, people who are on various support systems are going to be cared for, and that we're not worrying about them.
I hear you. We have 3 minutes left,
Yep.
and I didn't know if there's anything that you wanted to put forward that I hadn't asked about.
Sure.
And I'd like to give you that opportunity now,
Okay.
and then we can close at the end. To you.
Well, I must say I'm a very proud Canadian. The fact that we have really taken the threats as an opportunity, and in so doing that, we're now looking across Canada as how, as patriot people, we can look after ourselves and be much more independent and much more secure as a nation, knowing that we're always going to have the United States as our partner. But that importance of diversifying, building back our economy so that we feel more secure is really incredibly important. And what's secondly important is that Mark Carney has the skills and experience to lead that. And what we want is a leader. And I guess what I'm seeing in the doors is that people are going to vote as a Canadian. They're not necessarily voting because of the political party they were before. And that's what I'm seeing when I'm door knocking and not talking on the streets in our own riding. There is an interest to look out for Canada first in this election. And I'm really proud to see that. And so if we want, which I believe we do, we want Mark Carney to be our Prime Minister, then you need to vote for me in this election so that I can serve you. Because my job is to serve. And it's not about what I'm going to bring to the decision-making parliament committees. It's what I'm going to learn from you so that we can do this together. And if you listen to Prime Minister Mark Carney, he talks about bringing everybody to the table. And if you look at how he's managed the tariffs, he's made sure that not only did he talk to the premiers, but he also talked to our First Nations, Métis, and Inuit persons, because they're core to our future policy making. And so I'm really impressed that the values we hold dear in our riding in terms of inclusion and cooperation as we move forward in this very difficult time, I feel will be, if we're at the table, we will be part of that Liberal story, and it'll be a proud time for Canada. Canada strong, Canada free, and Canada forever.
Well, and thank you very much. And we actually have about a minute left.
Wonderful.
So let's see a couple of other questions. Supply management and agribusiness.
That's a big one.
It is. And given what was talked about during the last renegotiation, where does the Liberal Party sit on supply management and agribusiness?
So I think what you will see, and certainly I think anybody in our riding knows how I feel, dairy is very much a discussion of President Trump. Dairy is not on the table in terms of Prime Minister Mark Carney, and I think you will see me making sure that we know our story and we present our story for our groups where our quota system is in place.
Okay.
If I could just end, what I do know is that, you know, people need to recognize that the United States already does a lot of quotas, or a lot of dairy in Canada. So we are not as vulnerable as we might think we are. I think we have a great case to ensure that our dairy and the quality of our dairy is maintained as we move forward. And I believe Mark Carney will support that, as will I.
Thank you very much, Ms. Edmonds, Liberal candidate for the riding of Leeds-Grenville-Thousand Islands-Rideau Lakes.
Thank you, sir.
And I wish you safe
pleasure.
travels during the campaign.
Thank you.